Welcome back to Come Back with a Warrant podcast. I'm Brandon Dinitz.
And I'm Monica Ashak. Before we kickstart this week's episode, this is your reminder that this podcast is not legal advice. It's real, unfiltered, and for entertainment purposes only. If you need to speak with a lawyer, call one. Or better yet, call us. Welcome to Come Back with a Warrant. I'm Monica Ashak.
I'm Brandon Dinitz.
And today we will be talking about teacher-student relationships.
The inappropriate kind.
When does it cross the line?
To being inappropriate.
Yes.
Okay.
So
I start off and I'm already kind of smirking at this because this is like one of those subjects that it's very controversial.
Very.
And it really, every case is different. Yeah. Okay. And I think the way that the public looks at every case is different. And you have real concerns here because there are the potential for a young person to be exploited and taken advantage of sexually. And there's nothing okay with that. That shouldn't be happening anywhere, anytime, any given, scenario where there's no ability to give consent. Like, that's just wrong entirely. But the question and the cases that come up are, and certainly the ones that get sensationalized in the news, are the stories where you have young teachers and older students and questions get raised that ultimately end in, does this person deserve to be a registered sex offender for the rest of their life?
Yeah. And that is something that really destroys someone's life.
Correct.
So, and the law doesn't have any sort of middle ground. It takes it more serious because the teacher is somebody that has power and authority over this person. And because of that, they take it seriously that this could be potentially someone that abused their power and was not, this student was not able to give consent. And unfortunately, Florida's law is like strict liability. Like, they don't care if you're 17 and about to turn 18 tomorrow, you're not considered able to give consent based on your age.
Right. And the thing that people are looking at, and you just hinted at it, in addition to this being, a rape case, this is also people taking advantage of positions of authority.
Yeah.
And that is one of the big things that, prosecutors often focus on when they have these types of cases, is that a teacher violated that duty and that position of authority over a student by engaging in a sexual relationship with that student. And then these people are charged with it really depends on the state, but they could be charged with different types of sexual assault. They can be charged with sexual battery. They can be charged really with all different sorts of statutory rape-related charges that make this a crime. And another thing that you touched upon, there are certain states that make it so where even if the student is 18, the relationship is still illegal, still problematic, and still could put the teacher in a position where they are criminally charged. Just
because of the nature of their relationship, just
Correct.
Because they're enrolled in that school.
Right.
And that is even scarier, I think, than Florida's law, because at that point, there are so many high school students that are 18, 19, maybe even a little bit older. Their teachers are 25, 26, 27, 28.
I think teachers are younger. You can have teachers even younger because it's a 4-year education, right, to become a teacher, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
There's not additional schooling that you have to go to.
Yeah.
So how old are you getting out of college at 21, 22, 23, and then you're off to teach? You can very quickly be someone that's in their early 20s in charge of a classroom of people that are almost 20 years old, or 16, 17, 18-year-olds. That's very close in age if you are not in the classroom. It's
also important to note that the students now are not, or I should say the generation in which kids are 16, 17, 18 years old are not, don't look their age. This generation definitely looks older than their age. So I think that creates this, I guess, I don't know if they have this idea in their head that they're older than what they are, or more mature than what they are, because then they you're 17, you're getting lip filler.
Well, everything is different because of phones and social media.
Yeah.
The reason that everybody looks differently and the reason that they are perceived differently and they act differently is because they have access to phones and to social media. They're seeing the same content that adults are seeing. Just because they're in high school doesn't mean they're getting only high school appropriate content.
Yeah.
So they are changing the way they look to look like their favorite celebrities that are adults. And that is grabbing the attention of actual adults, it would appear.
Well, they're also privy to, because of social media, they're privy to more information. Like they're
Right.
advanced, like compared to what previous generations were, I think. And like they are put onto a lot of things that other generations in the past have not known or been exposed to at that age. So a lot of them become sexually active at a much younger age than what previous generations were. And
Right.
now they're doing like sex ed at a younger age. Like there's so many new things that are being implemented to kind of cater to this new generation of people who have access to technology and social media because they're being exposed to so many things. We need to teach them how to be protected or how to have safe sex and all these things. So when it comes to their interaction with their teacher and their age gap and maybe the rapport they end up having because they're closer in age, and then that builds into something, and then a lot of times they exchange numbers with their students and it starts off with something that may be school related, and
Right.
then things snowball.
And this isn't, I mean, we can blame social media and cell phones to an extent, but this has been going on for a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
There was a famous case when we were kids of a teacher that was, I remember she was on trial and she was like pregnant with a student's kid. This is something that's been around for a long time, and this has been an issue, but now it is certainly more of an issue.
So common.
And it comes up all the time. I mean, Barstool Sports has a grade the newest teacher scandal section where whenever one of these teachers comes out, they give a grade to everything from how good looking the teacher is to how, terrible their judgment was for what they did and what they did with a student. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about how these people all get caught and get in trouble. I mean, it's ultimately the female teachers are getting caught because some kid is either bragging to another kid or they wind up getting themselves into a position where their parents find out, and the parents are the ones that
Yes.
call it in. The moms are not thinking it's cool that you're hooking up with your teacher. They are seeing that it's a crime and reporting it.
They also,
and that's what happens.
Yeah. And oftentimes I can definitely understand where the parent would be coming from, where they feel like there may be an abuse of authority or whatever.
Well, or a predator is sexually going after their kid.
Yeah. But unfortunately, consent is not a defense in the state of Florida.
Correct. Not in this situation.
No, because they have it so that, like, if you're under a certain age, you are not in a position to be able to even give consent, even if you are technically consenting and you're engaging willfully. No one's forcing you, And that's where it kind of becomes, I think, a problem, because that's, like you said, you started it off by saying, like, you get this label for the rest of your life.
Right. And that's then that's where it's, what do we do? And do we do, how do you look at these things in a case by case situation? Because let's give an example where you have a teacher that's 23 years old and a student that's 17 turning 18, okay? 23-year-old female teacher and 17 to 18-year-old male student, okay? And they are having a sexual relationship and it comes out and the teacher is then charged. Should that teacher carry a label, a sex offender label, the rest of their life? That's a question that you could put out there. We could put it out there to our audience. And I think most people out there would probably say, no, they shouldn't be forced to carry that label. Okay, change the scenario a little bit. Make the student a female student and make it a male teacher that's, let's say it's a 25-year-old male teacher and a 16-year-old female student. Should that person carry the sex offender label? And are they any more responsible or likely to have that label put on them than the female teacher? Do we have to look at it case by case and say, well, yeah, what he's doing is wrong and what she's doing is wrong but less wrong, so she shouldn't get the label? Maybe that is what we should be doing. But the law is black and white with the issue, and it is black and white with what's the age of the quote-unquote alleged victim and what is the age of the perpetrator, or in this situation, the teacher that's in that position of authority.
Yeah, and I've seen different scenarios play out where there was like a relationship between a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old even, and it wasn't a teacher student relationship, but it could be applied in that scenario where the parent knows about it and they don't like it, so they're the ones that report it, and their kid is protected because they're the one that's considered the alleged victim, but the person who's older is not. And so that's kind of what you were saying, like when the parent finds out and they report it, or when let's say the scenario with the younger girl and the older teacher, they could get upset because they're actually in a relationship. They could get upset about something that teacher did,
Right.
and then go and tell on them or report them based off of them being upset about what's going on in their relationship, like what happens in domestic cases where people kind of just weaponize the system. But this is something that has long lasting consequences on people's lives, affects where you can live, affects everything. You have to register your license, like every single thing must be known once you get that label. So it really is something that I think we should take in terms of like looking at all the circumstances, because like you're saying, it's like so black and white, but there's so many areas of the law that are not black and white. In fact, that's not most of the legal things that we do in court are not black and white. That's why we're here, you know? A lot of things are in the, totality of the circumstances, or what a reasonable expectation or what the reasonable person would do. And we look at the totality of the circumstances to make that determination. Then we have factors. And I think those are things that are so important, especially when it comes to an age, whatever age, let's say 15 to 18 or 17, whatever it is, look at the circumstances, who it is, the teacher, how old they are, what their relationship was actually like actually investigate that stuff before having to put that on someone. But then the second a teacher is accused of that, the media, they like grasp
Because
onto that.
Yeah, it's a hot story. That's a story that has garnered media attention for forever. The idea that a teacher is having a relationship with a student is something that the public likes to read about and it sells stories, it sells newspapers, it sells, the ad space. That story always makes it to the news, and the facts of each story, I think we're both saying, matter. It really makes a difference, because I think maybe the examples I gave before weren't the best. I think what my example really is if you start off with the first example being a 23-year-old female teacher and a 17-year-old male, and then you go to a 25-year-old female teacher and a 15-year-old male. Well, now there's a difference, and now we are already saying there's something wrong with this inherently. Just by me changing the ages, we're saying that we're all feeling that there's a difference, and we're feeling that there's something wrong with it. And maybe that's where the role of the prosecutor and the role of the judge at sentencing comes into play. These things should all be factored in before you give somebody that type of label for the rest of their life.
Fortunately, yes. But that's something for the legislator.
Right. That's not for
Unfortunately,
us.
I'm like, how can we do this? But there are
But
things.
also, who wants to be the face of that legislation?
Yeah.
And who's the face of the legislation that says there should be some sort of sliding scale of age difference for, cases? I mean, that's ridiculous. You don't want to be the face of that legislation.
and-
But the conversation should be had.
100%.
Whether or not it's right to apply the sentence evenly to everybody in these settings, in this scenario. Topic. What do you do? Or do you just say, no, everybody is treated the same? If you're a teacher, you don't sleep with a student, period. That's it. You're just as guilty as somebody that is of an age we as a society are less likely to say is okay.
I think there can definitely be a middle ground where it's considered a crime, but not a crime where you're followed for the rest of your life with this label. And I think that is supported by, if we're going to enhance a 12 and under offense to a capital, you're facing life, then we should consider the other ages and see, like, where can we create the range of ages where it's going to be something that could be considered a crime, if that's something that would appease the legislator, and not have to impose the label on the sex offender label on the teacher.
That's the beginning of your teaching career. You've been out of high school for like no time at all, and you're back in the high school environment, and you look like you're the same age as everybody else. That's just something that's why it's so common. It happens.
Yeah. So there's also something called Romeo and Juliet law, and Florida allows certain offenders to petition for removal from the sex offender registry if the sexual relationship was consensual, if the victim was 14 to 17, and the offender was no more than 4 years older and the relationship wasn't coerced. But this doesn't apply to teacher-student relationships.
Oh, wow. So Florida's law specifically cuts out.
Because of their position of authority. So that's something that I think the legislator takes honestly more seriously, because they've created this exception for people who are within they could be literally the same exact scenario, same age. The only difference is that this is not a teacher-student relationship and they're able to get off the registry. So that's kind of scary. I think it's scary that I mean, it shows how serious they take that relationship, but I think they should be given more grace because they're, just like you said, put back into the same environment that they were just left a few years prior. I think that can be looked at both ways, but I think more so in a mitigating way.
Have that sexual offender label attached to it, and you can still do what you need to do with that charge and charge the crime and prosecute somebody for it without doing that. But that's for the legislature to decide, and as of now, they've decided clearly that that's not what if it's a teacher-student relationship, then it doesn't matter.
There's no avenue to even get off the registry if you're a teacher.
No.
Unfortunately. But there's also a role that technology plays here, and that's like text messages are often turned over from the student's phone. That could prove that this is actually a consensual relationship in a sense where it was like a willful, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because then it just makes it just confirms that the relationship existed, really. It doesn't mitigate anything else. It doesn't help you or your case
Plus
anymore.
The age of consent. It doesn't matter what the text messages were, what the student's position was. The law says before a certain age you cannot consent.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So really the best way to challenge these types of cases, if there isn't any of that, would be like, if there is an allegation, obviously scientific investigations in terms of like, doing all the kits and all the things and, swabs and whatever they need to do in order to prove that there was a sexual battery that occurred. But a lot of this, like, oftentimes I think has more technological evidence, to back up the allegation, which is like text and social media or whatever. And that's also another thing, like teachers having their students on social,
That just seems like a way to get in trouble if you're a teacher, having your students on your social media or,
Well, I remember
having their cell phone numbers. I think that's likely going to lead to trouble. I mean, the cell phone numbers maybe not so much, because you can think of things like tutoring or other legitimate reasons why, if you're in a club and that person's the club organizer and you need to reach out to them to get into the school. I mean, there's legitimate reasons why you would have somebody's cell phone number. So I can understand that. But the social media,
it's a little weird.
It's weird.
Yeah.
There's no reason that you should.
I agree.
That your students should be your friends on social media.
Yeah. And I remember when I was in high school, like we had cool teachers, and even like the female teachers with the female students would not even like engage on social, because they were like, do not add me on social. Or if they were added on social, they would not accept, because they didn't even want even like the look of impropriety. They were like, please, like we need some sort of space, because this is the young teacher is the cool teacher.
Right.
Like everybody like this. It's not like this person's imposing themselves. Like, no, they're welcome. Like they love the older students usually connect better with the younger teachers because they're closer in age. The teacher seems cool, whatever it is. So there's always this, I think, other like level to it where you have to just, as a teacher, be very careful and mindful of like the extra things that you're doing in case there's ever an allegation that you did something to a student or whatever.
Right.
So obviously every state is different, and this conversation is primarily based off Florida law because that's what we practice. I don't know if we have anything else.
Yeah, I think this is really a topic. If people have feedback, we would love to hear it, because this is one of those things that it's a topic that whenever it's in the media, people gravitate to it and they want to learn about the story and they want to understand. I mean, there was even a Adam Sandler movie where the purpose of the whole point of the story was that he slept with a teacher and then was meeting his long lost son like years later at the son's like wedding or something like that. So they don't remember the name, but this is a topic that comes up often, and something that doesn't come up often is what we've really discussed here, and that's whether or not there should be a greater understanding of the circumstances when it comes to punishment than there is currently? And if so, then, what does that kind of look like?
I think a lot of people, they view the scenario from like the perspective of like, this is so inappropriate, instead of actually understanding like what could have led to this scenario or what happened. Oftentimes, like what you're saying with the movie, with Adam Sandler movie, I haven't seen it, but I'm assuming it was showing like he was like a big shot.
He was like the cool kid.
He's the cool kid that slept with the teacher.
Right.
Exactly. So it's like the
and
cool
that's how
thing.
it was showing it off.
But then the other side of it is like the teacher's disgusting. If you look at it from like not in the movie, but like outside, it's like, how could this person, they're a predator and all these things.
Right.
And it's like, it's such a, like, it's a double standard. You know what I mean?
In certain cases.
Yes. Not every time.
It's in certain cases, there's that double standard. Yeah.
Yeah. So it definitely is something that we would be willing to maybe talk about further. If people want to leave comments or questions, we're going to be having an opportunity for that. And we'll put it in the show notes for people to submit any questions they want to discuss on, or want us to discuss on future episodes. That'll be cool.
Yeah.
And that's all we have.
That's all we have for today.
So check the show notes. We have Come Back with a Warrant.pod on all platforms. Like, comment, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review. And if you don't like listening to us,
come back with a warrant.